The decline of arcade gaming and arcades in general has hurt gaming. Now, I may sound like an old fogey in that regard, but actually, I'm a millennial leaning more towards the older side of being a millennial, as in, hey, I drank Kool Aid and Tang growing up. I'm not the millennial that was, hey, we're whole foods, all natural stuff. I'm like, nah, I still ate Happy Meals, had Kool Aid, drank Tang, things of that nature. Now, when it came to arcade gaming, it was actually like a test bed, a beacon for creation of new games and seeing how the public could react to it, and also for a way to for you to get feedback, money wise kind of feedback, and see how you can improve your games because you did have revisions of games and and remakes of games to make sure that it was good while it was still in the arcade before it even came to a home console. So arcade led to greater quality control, especially in the 90s. As we got away from the arcades, the further we got from that and into the modern times, you have updates and patches for a lot of these games. And a lot of these games would get patched while they were in the arcade, and by the time we got it home, it was pretty good, just a scaled down, reduced version of it. And it was a scaled down, reduced version of it because the arcade, at least during my era, during the Renaissance, and I'm talking about early 90s, Street Fighter 2, Mortal Kombat, Sega taking over with the virtual racing, Virtual Fighter, Daytona USA. We have the Terminator 2 arcade game. My first kind of experience with first person shooters and the Time Cops, the Namco games. And actually, I didn't play Tekken in the arcade. I think, at least in my area, the arcades were declining. So I didn't even get the chance to play the Tekkens in the arcade. But obviously, I played it on PlayStation. But yeah, that was where you could check out the latest games, see something that was only done in the arcade but couldn't necessarily be done at home. It had to be scaled down, like virtual racing. You played that good version of the arcade, you play a less version at home, saying Mortal Kombat and pretty much all of the games. It gave you a glimpse into the future, like, hey, this is what is possible, but then you get the scaled down version at home. And I felt that arcade definitely pushed the limits, so it definitely had a space for hardcore gamers beyond the casual gamer, if you will. And I played some of the old school games, as in Pac-Man, what is it, Asteroids, those kind of shooter games. I played in I believe in like some laundromats and even in some of the older games section area that they had in those arcades that you might see the older crowd that might have tried it out in the 70s or something. But yeah, I definitely miss arcades. It definitely set the tone with video gaming. And I'm not sure if I helped contribute to the decline because part of the reason is when I got a home console and I told my folks, I'm like, hey, you know how we spend all these quarters at the arcade, or I gotta have these quarters for arcade. If I get this one, whatever, $50 Sega Genesis game, guess what? Already have it at home and don't gotta be spending these money at the arcade. And the home did become more convenient for playing these games. And you played some of the similar games just at a reduced kind of fidelity, if you will. But yeah, I was definitely into gaming back then, early 90s. I even enjoyed the Simpsons arcade game, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade games. It was a lot of good games, a lot of good memories. First experience like a vibration feedback rumble before consoles had it, before the PlayStation had it. In the arcade, feeling it through the guns or the steering of driving games, playing Cruising USA, Outrun, even old school Space Harrier kind of thing. So yeah, it definitely had a special place for me. That's why I experienced my first, real full grown up, hardcore kind of gaming. First first experiences with competitive, being some competing against other people with video games here and there. Especially as the Mortal Kombat 2 era came out. Cause I remember being in the arcade, however young I was, could 7, 8 years old, however something like that. You had to play against older teens, grown men. That was a popular game, and they talking about, yo, I don't want to take a quarter. But then you've been chilling in the cut a little bit. You see how everybody does everything, what the moves are. You look at the cabinets, etc., and you learn a few things. And I learned from other people how to pull off that Liu Kang fatality with the dragon in Mortal Kombat 2. So once I was able to get that going and get some of that moves going and flying kicks, I had to beat a few people. And that's back in the day, when people would stand around a little bit, a few people stand around waiting, to get on the game. And if you get on a roll, people, start making noise like the oohs and ahs, like this young boy, he's getting it, he's got it. And I pull that fatality. That's when you really get them, and it just get people going. So, yeah, back then, when you play them latest, greatest games, sometimes you had to be ready to compete with people older than you, or just in general. So I mean, that was a different experience. I'm 7, 8 years old. You got to compete against like these older teenagers, somebody in their 20s. Grown folks, if you will. They beat you, take a quarter. In so many words. But I was able to get a few win. I sat back and kind of watched some of the more experienced people play. I played at times it was less crowded. A few times, like by the time I got on there at some point, I was able to compete, pull the fatalities. There were people in the back saying he got it, he got the hands and all that. So yeah, it was fun in that regard. Daytona USA, fun with all those cars lined up in certain arcades and you competing against people, fun. Sega, big arcade. I've been to Sega DreamWorks, mid-90s, Las Vegas. I enjoyed that. I don't remember everything they had there, but that was fun. I was in the arcades. So I enjoyed Sega DreamWorks in Las Vegas, mid-90s. ESPN Zone, when they still had that. Now, that was a different level of gaming. That's when it became more about winning tickets, as in ESPN Zone, Discovery Zone, Chuck E. Cheese. And it was almost like gambling, if you will. And that's part of the reason, like, why they got this 21 age limit on gambling was the same thing with video games. We win these tickets at skee ball and things of that nature. So, I mean, I always had a similar kind of thought pattern, like, hey, why this one gaming okay for kids, but this other kind isn't? And we can see that with the tickets back then, and obviously people start seeing it now with these loot boxes and loot crates that came up, like it's gambling, things of that nature. So, I've always thought like that. Saw like, hey, I see it one way, but these people not seeing it one way. So, whatever. But I'm not gonna get into all that. But I'm just here to say, hey, I missed arcade, and I felt it's an integral part of gaming in the U.S. to set the tone and say, hey, this is what is possible. This is what it is. And when something's good, hey, how can we improve it and get it ready by the time it comes to the home console? Quality control, a place of experience to the latest and greatest. I wish they could bring it back. I doubt that would happen because people are comfortable at home. And right now, the biggest things arcades are ticket winnings. You had a little uptick when the Dance Revolution thing popped off and Guitar Heroes and stuff, and things of that nature, and some specialty games that popped off. And I was able and fortunate enough to be able to say, hey, when the Street Fighter 2 era, the Mortal Kombats of the world, the Daytona USA, the whole Sega arcade thing with the 3D graphics popped off, I was able to be experienced at that time at a young age. Back at home when all I had was a few Tiger Electronic games and a Game Boy. Like that was even before I was able to get the Sega Genesis. So yeah, I have good memories as a part of and experienced the resurgence of video gaming where it had that edge. Nothing near that whole late 70s, early 80s when it was like a $12 billion industry. No, but I definitely have real arcade experiences that helped just shape my views of video gaming, what video gaming should be like. It definitely affected the games that I got on Sega Genesis at that point because I wanted the Mortal Kombat, the NBA Jams. I was mad when I picked up the wrong Terminator game and I had to go get the Terminator 2, the arcade game, because I thought gaming was defined by the arcade. Virtual Racing, Virtual Fighter, Daytona USA. That was my whole conception of video gaming. Yeah, I had Sonic, and that was cool, but that like just something specifically for home, a little something to be different. But I definitely said, hey, arcade gaming is real gaming. And gaming, over time has moved away from the arcades to to a degree, and more about the home, even online experience. But there's always a part of me from an early age that says, hey, arcade gaming, that's real gaming, that's hardcore gaming. Whatever's at the arcade, that's what's popping. That's what I want when I get home. Even though that does have some limits, and there's definitely games that aren't arcade that I enjoy these days. So, sports simulation games. I had NBA Live. Then I progressed to NBA 2K with the Dreamcast in '99. Some of these more complex racing games. I enjoy the God of War games, the Halo games. The computers with the late '90s Quake, Unreal, the first-person shooters, Roller Coaster Tycoon, sim games. So yeah, there's definitely a place for that. And as I got older, I enjoyed other types of games. But that arcade, that early '90s Renaissance, once the Street Fighter 2s and Mortal Kombat era popped off, that just that whole era and everything's in the arcade is just how I define gaming and what real hardcore gaming means. And it's when I think about it, I was like, hey, by the time it gets home, that quality control matters. You see so many updates and patches nowadays. Like, you're just a beta tester. Well, guess what? And I know every game can't be an arcade, but arcade, that's where you can test it out a little bit. They make those revisions, get it home, and it's good. But yeah, arcade gaming, the lack of in the United States and decline has definitely hurt gaming. That's my take. Iceberg Jim out. Deuces.